Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another edition of PC Quest Health Tech Talks. So, this we started last year. It's very timely during the pandemic era. And we have been doing our monthly panel discussions where every time we take up a different topic and get experts to tell you about it in detail. So, this time we've picked up hyper personalized health insurance is upon us. Now, that's because we have talked, the pandemic has seen great technological acceleration. There have been changes in every field, and health tech has undergone a dramatic change in India, and one of the subsets of that is health insurance. So health insurance is also it's a ever increasing field, and its coverage is getting even wider and wider, and it's getting more complex. So to discuss these things with us, we have with us Sanil Basutkar, co-founder HealthySure. Welcome, Sanil.
Yeah, hi Sunil. Thank you for the introduction. I'm glad to be a part of the show.
Yeah. And we have with us Layak Singh, CEO of Artivatic.ai. Welcome, Layak.
Thank you, Sunil, and thank you everyone, and good to be joining here.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking before we go forward, like this is for a lot of the common people, it's slightly an obscure topic because, I mean, say 20, 30 years back, you just take a form, you fill it in, and, this is the insurance, this is the details and all this. There was no such thing as personalization in health insurance, once upon a time. But there are, like various technologies that are helping in personalizing the details of, the patient within the healthcare system, and they are offering personalizing things. So before we go on to the concept of hyper personalization, maybe we can take up what is personalized healthcare and how much of it is actually happening in India, and maybe in the world if not much is happening in India. So I think let's just keep it informal. Anyone can take this up first. Like, you're taking it up.
Basically, as we talk about
Yeah.
hi, uh, so basically, as we talk about the health personalization point of view, and what we're seeing in that the way that the kind of like a change is happening in healthcare point of view, people are basically quite passionate in terms of what they want to basically consume, right? That we basically come to the point of personalization. And as example, I need a kind of like a treatment. So basically, my body have the different kind of like a changes, or I live in different environment. I maybe have the kind of like a different trends of health symptoms, or the kind of like areas that I need to consume. Maybe like my need is very different. My need basically, like I may not need a 10 lakhs of some insurance. Basically, I may be helpful with the 5 lakhs around that. Or I have a family of like 4 people around that. And so basically all these factors involved in a way that how I can basically get the kind of need which satisfies the kind of like my personal, it may be insurance, it may be the kind of like how I take my kind of like a wellness, how I take care of my doctor consulting and the family around that, which all basically combines. If you basically use the data points about a family, their health patterns, their past records of medical data, their past records of the tests, any kind of a disease around that, if you combine all these factors around that, and if you personalize that journey in a way that, okay, this is an individual, a Layak, who needs this kind of insurance. He needs these kind of like three benefit, which is going to support him in a kind of like a better benefits around that. So if we combine these experiences to an individual, to to the families, I think we call this as a personalization, which involves the data, which involves the technology, which involves the kind of like how we're living, which environment we're living into. So this is where we come into the kind of journal that, okay, how to personalize the healthcare to anybody, how to personalize the kind of like a benefits to them needed by them.
Okay.
Right.
So I think
Just,
Sanil can add to that.
I mean, to add to that, I mean, there are ways that insurance companies do personalize insurance policies for the common person, like for people. There are certain riders attached to the insurance policies, which if the person insured needs, they'll be able to subscribe to those riders. And for example, if there's a restoration bonus, so for example, if you make a claim and if you want to restore the sum insured to certain levels, you can have that as a rider in the insurance policy itself. If you want an OPD cover, so based on what the requirements of the insured person is, they are able to basically create a customized policy according to what their needs are. When it comes to what kind of technologies that we are adopting, I think one of the biggest uh, change, in at least not in the insurance side per se, but in terms of healthcare, is the introduction of digital health ID. which will basically systematically create records of all kinds of healthcare treatments that an individual and an Indian citizen has been, able to take over a period of time. So this will include details about all his lab tests, results of diagnostics, the kind of medicines he's taking, and this has the potential to really transform the way health insurance is consumed. At least at this point of time, the system is, I think, the initiative still at a very nascent stage, and people are definitely working on solving certain problems in the health insurance space and providing a decent level of customization and personalization to health insurance policy through the use of this technology.
Yeah, so thank you both for that basic, about personalization and things like customized healthcare and digital IDs. So then, what would classify as hyper personalization? So, and what kind of the journey are we going to take from personalization to hyper personalization? Is any amount of hyper personalization already there, or like are we quite far away from that? And when it happens, what is the hyper personalization, and what can the people expect from that?
I mean, if I did mention about digital health IDs, where you have all
Right.
kinds of personalized health records for an Indian citizen that he, and it's just about a matter of time when insurance company will be able to leverage this kind of data and try to identify what are the healthcare patterns for an individual and accordingly underwrite appropriate insurance policies, thereby bringing down the cost of health insurance because they're able to appropriately project what the risks of an individual are based on what the data is. I feel that this is still a past of personalized insurance when it comes to hyper personalized insurance. So to give you some example, just a month ago I was talking to this founder of a company called Veletix. Now what they do is they basically take genetic data and they are able to identify the risks of an individual where they can accurately predict whether this person is susceptible to heart disease or any other genetic kind of disease. And this they are able to evaluate through the use of AI, ML, and all kinds of tools and technology. And this you can say is a hyper personalized way of identifying what the risks are for an insurance company. And if this takes off, and definitely insurance companies are able to portray exactly what the risks are for an individual, and will they appropriately be able to charge a premium for their health insurance. So just a few examples of what could be there in the future, but I feel at this point of time it's still maybe a couple of years away.
Yeah. So basically, just to add on top of Sunil, as you said, so as we talk about the personalization, like personalization is something that, okay, I go to a website and insurance, I check what I need and I pull it out. But the moment we move into the hyper personalization, which catches the kind of like as Sanil said, like we utilizing the kind of like maybe the past data of the medical diseases or the kind of like data about the tests or maybe the data that we are looking around the kind of like maybe the DNA sequence that is coming out at the moment of time, which is pretty far though, but people are using the DNA sequencing as well. What will be the potential issue that can happen today, as well as what can happen based on the DNA sequencing for the future as well, because they can determine the kind of like as I think as we know when the baby is born these days, there are many companies basically putting certain kind of like preservations for the some DNAs of the people the baby at the time itself, because they can use that informations which they can use the kind of like the data to personalize the future, and they can recognize the potential disease in the future as well. So there are many such areas, and use of the kind of like the way that you living in the environment that you belong into. So if you combine all these areas, it becomes a hyper personalization. So hyper-personalization is very subjective in nature. It is a kind of like there is no single processes for that we can define. And as Sunil rightly said, that this is still a very early journey. We have moved into the journey of the health insurance as a personalization, but we're still far away from the hyper-personalization because it needs a more intensive understanding of the DNAs and understanding from the kind of like a family like a complete kind of like a family, who they are, what they do, the family history around the like their medicines, disease around there. So I think it's a long journey for that, the hyper personalization. But personalization we have reached successfully. Hyper personalization is still a far away that we can see the journey around that.
Just to add one point to that,
Sure.
I mean, one of the reasons that, at least in India, it will still far away to take off is that India is, separate in terms of genetic data when it comes compared to, let's say the European or the Western countries. So we need that kind of data to actually understand, what is the impact of, genetics in India, and what is the correlation between, let's say, heart disease to the Indian genetic data. So unless we have that level of data, it's very difficult, and that will take some amount of time to, run these kind of AI and ML tools to understand what are the potential risks for a person through his, genetic testing.
So I think like the audience now has got a basic idea of what is personalization and what is hyper personalization and where we stand. So I think just before we move forward, I'd like to know like what HealthySure and Artvatic are doing, what your companies are doing. So I'll start with you again, Sanil. So can you talk about your unified health insurance? Your employee centric health program, and how large could it expand? Like I was just like seeing up that you get to do various private companies and all. Like one day could the central government adopt something like this for its employees? Like, can you just speak about it and its future scope?
Absolutely. I mean, during the pandemic, we came up with a we came up across a very unique problem that people had. Despite people having their corporate insurance, they were finding it very, very difficult to, pay their medical bills, because a corporate would anyways cover between an individual for, let's say, a sum insured of 3 lakh to 5 lakhs, which is like the average range. But the medical bills during the COVID time, typically were around 10 lakhs for a person who is, very, very critical. So ultimately, what ended up happening was that people were borrowing money, or, utilizing their savings to basically cover their medical bills, despite the fact that they were having a company sponsored or an organization sponsored health insurance. So we thought that, why is this the case? Why is this happening? Ultimately, what we thought of was, to combat this, let us provide a product to employees so that they can leverage their corporate spends, and at the same time they are also able to get a comprehensive healthcare cover. So unified health insurance is basically a culmination of retail and corporate sponsored health insurance, where if employees need, they are able to take a separate health cover, which is leveraging the spends and the sum insured that the corporate already has. So, for example, if my corporate is spending or giving me a cover of 3 lakh rupees, I can take a comprehensive cover of 30 lakh rupees and just pay a nominal amount to, get that cover. Because what happens, how the insurance pricing works, is that the first 2 or 3 lakhs of an insurance cover will basically form around, 70 to 80% of the cost of the health insurance, and anything above and beyond that is just a nominal figure that health insurance companies predict, or assess that they won't the incidence of these claims will be very, very low. So accordingly, we came up with a product which is this, where, employees can take a cover as large as 1 CR, and get that at a very, very nominal cost, leveraging the spends that the organization has already provided them for. When it comes to your next question of will this be scalable, I mean, yeah, definitely. A lot of people, today realize that, this kind of the organization sponsored cover is not enough, and they opt for a separate personal cover altogether. Now what happens is that this becomes a very expensive proposition, because they have to also take into account the base portion, and accordingly the price of this product becomes very, very high. When it and people do realize that, and if they're able to get a cheaper cover, a comprehensive health cover at a very cheaper rate, then, we have seen that, people really, really love our product, and the adoption rate for our product is very high. Coming to whether the government can adopt this, yeah, definitely, why not? I feel that government has its own limitations in providing comprehensive healthcare to the population, and if they are able to treat this as a subsidy, where a certain portion is sponsored by the government up to, let's say, a cover of 3 lakh or 5 lakh, and the rest of it is basically a voluntary cover, and which is available at a very cheap rate, the kind of penetration of health insurance will be much higher, and the ability of the government to provide a comprehensive healthcare for most of the population will be better, I suppose. So yeah, I mean, it's a good concept, and I feel that with tweaks and certain changes, we can, really help. We can aim towards, having a comprehensive health insurance coverage to the Indian population, if the government wants to, explore this kind of an idea.
But this sounds quite eye-opening. I mean, is it that easy to go from like 3 to 30 lakhs with a nominal fare? Because why I think this is of great importance is, like, again, as I was talking, in the olden days, people thought 1 to 3 lakhs is enough. But in the COVID era, you don't know what is enough. So you're talking like scaling up to 30 lakhs, 1 crore. So two aspects to that. Even that is something like a personalization. Your company
Right.
says it's 3 lakhs, I will personalize it to 5, 10, 15, 20 lakhs. So is it
Right.
easy? And I'd just like to know, maybe figures, are people actually scaling up to 30 lakhs, 1 crore? What has
Yeah, they are. I
people?
mean, people will definitely want to have their comprehensive cover, right? It's not that they're looking for a cover which they will use in the normal scenario, because let's say most of the claims are in the region of 1 to 3 lakhs, and that is why people have that misconception that we'll be fine with the insurance coverage that we have. But in critical cases like what happened during COVID, it's very important to have a comprehensive health cover. Uh, so as I mentioned that, because most of the claims are in the region of 1 to 3 lakhs, insurance, the premiums over there are very, very high. But anything beyond 5 lakhs or anything beyond 10 lakhs, it's easy for insurance companies to price their premiums very less, because they see that the incidence of this will be negligible. It was only an exception during COVID that the claims shot up. But in let's say a normal scenario, like what we are seeing right now, maybe hopefully the COVID pandemic is over,
Yeah.
that these kind of extra coverages will be very economical for insurance companies to provide, and it's very easy. And employees or people will be safe to assume that it's in terms of any emergency, they're covered with a comprehensive health cover, and they don't have to worry about these things at all.
That's interesting. So, and then, like, coming to you, like, can you talk about your AI native SAS solutions for insurance and health services and its use in developing the insurance ecosystem? Because this is also interesting. Like, we deal a lot with the IT industry, so AI and SaaS solutions are very common there. But here in health tech, and also a subset as health insurance, looks quite interesting. So maybe if you could explain all that.
Yes, Sunil. So basically, so what we try to focus on the Artivatic side, our focus over there is that normally, as Sanil said, that the focus is that how to provide the kind of like coverages and the benefits to the kind of like the patients around that, to a limit of 3 lakhs to we are going into the kind of like a top up on that to 30 lakhs 1 crore, because it becomes easier because the basic expenses that is covered there. But in Artivatic point, what we do once you got a policy, now, ultimately, the game comes around the filing a claims. You are a patient, you want to file a claim because you are paying the premium, so that when you get into trouble of disease, you want to file for a claims. That is where Artivatic comes in the current picture. So what we're trying to do in Artivatic, we're trying to building an ecosystem which allows, with a one line aim that we're trying to build up, can we discharge a patient from hospital to home in 10 minutes? How we do that, right? How we do that, what is needed to do that actually? It needs a technology which needs the hospital side modernization or ecosystem to build up. It needs a technology which can be allowed the insurance side for the faster decision making, or it needs a technology which allows the patient to also have their own records, data, informations, and have a status updated on that. This whole ecosystem needs the kind of like a heavy technology. It needs the kind of like a lot of data to process to assess that, so that this entire ecosystem from patients to insurers to hospital, hospital to patient, the ecosystem can make it faster. So this is where Artivatic comes in the picture. We build a technology, processes, data intelligence services, and ecosystem that we building for the hospital side as well, insurance side as well, provider network. We also building an ecosystem for our health application, which has the applications which allows the patients and the employees in terms of to use the wellness, the kind of like health recommendations, health intelligence, health network, and we basically do the automated claims, auto education at the insurance side via our system itself. It may be 1,000 claims per day, it may be 1 lakh claims per day, it may be 10,000 claims per day, doesn't matter. But we are building the technologies that we working as ecosystem in Avalos, and that is where Artivatic comes in the picture. So our focus as a vision is that can we allow a patient to go home in 10 minutes from the hospitals? Can we allow and enable a patient to basically help their kind of like a chronic diseases to take care from the mobile app itself without even visiting the hospital? Can we reduce the comorbidities of these patients so that they don't have to depend too much on the hospitals? These are the areas that Artivatic basically builds the technologies, use of AI, data, domain expertise, And the partner ecosystems like HealthySure, insurance companies, and 1MG, many such in the ecosystem built up around there to build up these platforms. So this is where Artivatic basically helping easiness of the process for the patients to get them faster discharge. Maybe the ecosystem around that, maybe different system might be behind that. So this is what we focusing around that and enabling the ecosystem to become that.
Yeah, so like I'll just ask one follow-up question. I like this within you want to sort that out within 10 minutes and all. But I'm just thinking that at the core of it is data. And in the hospital, when we talk, data is a big problem here. There is related to, the quality of data, how it is collected, privacy, hospitals. So I'm just curious to know how do you sort out the data problem at the base level?
So what we have done over here, we have built the. So you rightly said that the hospital has the privacy issues, hospital data issues, and in India, like the most of the claims which is being filed, like around 20%, I think claims is going on OPD side or cashless side, but around 60-70% claims basically going to the reimbursement side mostly in India. Now, what we're doing is that so the system that we're creating, we're basically giving them to the hospitals as well, and this system is basically building on the use of new technologies we call it identity authentication, like blockchain, anything around that. And for example, one system we go into the hospital or maybe connected our APIs to their HIMS systems or partner with companies like Practore or IQA, who's already have the system on the hospital side by the API, so that the data can flow from there, and the an aggregated system of the hospital cell allows them to basically pull the data by the API automatically. The system processes in encrypted way and decrypted way in the journey and goes back to the insurer to basically final approval in that journey. So we ensuring that the authentication is there, data encryption is there, and all the data which is basically getting created is basically have the ownership by the hospitals as well as the insurers, and the fear of that, okay, third party is coming and the data is going to them, we reduce out to that by giving them the ownership of the data to the hospitals and the insurers at their ecosystem actually. And for the decision point of view, so our focus with the hospitals is that to use more and more claims filing with the digital system that we built. So we have heavily utilized the ecosystem of like a stack that we use, India stack ecosystem, so that can we use the OTP based authentication for the claims filing instead of the form filling? Can we use the e-sign on that to form filling? And the data automatically can goes up by the digital forums to the insurers or our system to process that. So certain exercise has been started already. We seeing the result, but yes, it's not the kind of mass scale yet. It needs more time. Indeed, the kind of like a more experiments to go. And we also certain technologies like OCR, ICR as well, to certain extent, wherever it is needed digitalization. We have a system, especially built up a system which is a data audit system actually, that basically allows us to the kind of like combination of the data from the policies data, the data from the past historical data, claims data. The system basically mostly sits on the side of the insurance side and connects with all their partners. It may be 10,000 hospital, 15,000 hospitals inflow of the data. So that level of the work we also doing. We have a data audit system, data digitization system, data authentication systems, and data privacy systems, and ultimately giving the ownership to the hospitals, patients, and the insurers actually.
Okay. So actually, before I go on to the next question, I was just thinking like the more I talk to health tech professionals, I'm really surprised at the amount of work that is going in, the amount of high tech is being used. Like you talked of the India stack, that has already become the world's largest open API system in the world. I mean, Europe doesn't have it, US doesn't have it. Nobody even would have thought that we would come out with the largest open AI system, and that too backed by the government. So I'm just
Correct.
wondering, is it possible for us to leapfrog? Because, like as me
Absolutely.
and Sanil were discussing earlier, the US is system, despite being a superpower, has reached a roadblock. And I'm surprised at the amazing pace we have. So I'd like to hear from both of you: is this a good time to leapfrog and become world leaders in?
Yes.
Absolutely, there is no doubt on that. In fact, like what we're trying to pull it up over here, the India Stick example that I gave is basically in the practical in India, and the example that I'm putting up, like currently I'm working with one of the partner who has around 7,000 hospitals they have. Now, what they're building a journey. Can I create only a kind of like a small URL on the web, which just enter the kind of like a patient number or anything, and the system or on the browser itself able to provide certain details by the doctors or somebody or the system fetching the details automatically. They say submit, the system automatically authenticate data, encrypt the data, and send back to the insurer by the quick consent from the customer. The system sends the kind of like quick consent of OTP or other authentication, and it is actually happening. And we are already experimenting with more than 100 hospitals with one of the partners, and I think the result is coming promising. And it basically solving multiple pain points as a leapfrog, because the insurer doesn't have to wait for the documents to come to them. They don't have to basically depend on third-party systems on the decision processing, verification, QC, then errors around that. I think that is certain. We're able to solve that out, and then combining of the kind of like a India stack of the data, digital signature, e-authentications. Not every insurance company is basically approving that, but some of them are actually open to experiment to see the use cases to the benefit and leapfrog that. So that is already happening in India, and I think this is the best and best of the time for the health insurance in India to definitely grow around that.
Yes, absolutely. And just to add to that, I think I won't take any examples of healthcare and insurance per se, but I'll just give you an example of how fintech has in terms of fintech, India has become the leaders across the world right now. And if you go to any other country, you will see the amount of progress that we have made compared to let's say if you go to US or Europe, and you'll still people see people scrambling for their credit cards or whatever. So I think it's maybe people are underestimating the kind of technological leapfrogs that we've already taken. And while fintech has proven that for the Indian banking system, uh, insurtech and health tech will definitely do that for the traditional healthcare and the insurance ecosystem in India. And that is not something which is far away, but that is something that will happen in the next couple of years. So I think things are very promising, and India is right at the cusp of being like the technology superpower, you can say, across the world.
So another thing I was just thinking, everything seems to be falling in place. Like we had the Aadhaar system, then you had that OpenAI system, and also you have the National Digital Health Mission. So even the government has got big time. So are we ready for the government, for the private hospitals, for the startups, for the health insurance? Are we ready for an integration to take place? Because individually, I see everywhere technologically and we are happening. But once the integration takes place, I think we will go to the next level. So where would you
No,
say we
absolutely
stand?
right. Absolutely right. I think the government is pushing a lot, and they're trying to build up the similar kind of experience like we already doing in the fintech, as Sanil mentioned, because fintech has leapfrog like a UPI platform. Like we see the 2 billion of transactions happening per month kind of scenario. We reach to that, and similar kind of like government is pushing on the health UPI right now. They build up all of the platform kind of like a Abha, right? But it's like earlier called like a health Aadhaar. They're trying to build up the kind of an idea on that, and ADHM the building around that health Abha. And Abha is basically helping them to connecting the data from multiple processing, servicing around that, and definitely allowing that you can basically they've onboarded around 30,000 hospital system so that they can provide the e-objects. E-objects is the kind of a process in which you can get the digitization of data, because the major problem in India using technology in healthcare is digitization of the data, because if the standardization of the data is there, your policy can be seamlessly, your data can be accessed, your claims can be happen real time. So they've already started. I think 30,000 hospital onboarding on this ADHM platform, and they basically putting the e-objects data, and they're digitizing the kind of like processing around that. And Access Health, I know one of the company was working on the Access Health accelerator by the NHA. Artivatic, fortunately, was a part of the NHA accelerator, in which they basically launched the digital health footprints, in which they were creating the kind of health UPI, in which, like for example, I created my health UPI Layak at the rate abha dot something, and if I use that health UPI, I can access the data from any hospitals, anybody, and give a consent to any business to basically get access and provide that intelligence around that. It is already happening. It is a kind of like I should see in next 2 3 years. I think it go to the mainstream around that for sure.
Yes, I mean, just to add to a couple of points over there, that I mean, government is doing its own bit. I mean, it will just take like a, some time to for our ecosystem to mature enough to build use cases to have all these integrations together. So we know for a fact that it's not about if it's gonna happen, it's just when. And I think it's just a couple of years down the road.
Okay. So then another thing is like we have discussed a lot of these technologies, the National Health Mission, there was a bit of a blockchain, India Stack, API. Then I'd like to maybe discuss two game-changing technologies like IoT and AI, because these will be very big in the personalized health insurance space, and they'll have a great influence, because one is like AI actually can give a personalized look. When somebody comes, when a person comes, these are their health statistics, these are their diseases, these are, so it's very difficult for one person to sit and predict that. But whereas an AI system can just within no time, it can say, okay, this is the risk, this is this, and it can do. So one is the AI aspect, and I think second, which is becoming very big, is IoTs. So IoT is also two. One is your wearables. So obviously, if I agree to have an IoT wearable, then the health insurance company is very happy, because they know what I'm doing. I can't fool them. And also IoTs will be everywhere. It'll be in your health beds. If you take a sleep machine, it will be there. So that IoT ecosystem. So when we talk of personalized healthcare, these are two technologies which are really going to take personalized healthcare and health insurance both ahead. So maybe if you can speak about these two technologies once.
It is definitely. I will give you Indian company. There are many companies though, but I will give few of the names like Niram.ai, one of the company, and Cure.ai. If you call it Cure.ai, they basically are very specialized in using AI technologies in computer vision areas of the kind of cancer detection, and they have been FDA approved as well. Like they have been like doing a very good in the areas where you don't have the hospitals available. Can I do a cancer kind of like scanning in the can I do cancer kind of like scanning and cancer detections? So they built the kind of AI tool which basically takes your pictures and images and able to basically detect that okay, you have a cancer or you don't have a cancer around that. And so these technology like Indian government companies like Cure.ai, another company, I think I'm just forgetting the name around that, unfortunately. There's a pathology company which has filed like a 20 of the patents around that. It's an Indian-based company, and they basically provide all kind of like blood testing, everything as a kind of portable devices to you using AI technologies at the scale of the tier 4, tier 3 bridge level as well. And that is also there. IoT is already there. AI is already there. It's now kind of like a game where how to expand the use cases of the AI and IoT. Like I'm currently using AI in the cancer detection. Can I use this kind of like skin detection as well? And can I use the kind of like areas to like identifying the kind of like analysis of the kind of like city and so many cities can many such areas so that these companies can get it. So I know the many of the companies who is doing a very innovative works. Few of them I told about, but doing a very effective work, innovative works using AI and IoT in healthcare, which is providing not only the data to the insurers in real time, but it's also providing the kind of like factual information and helping the patient basically to providing the right claims without abuse of data. We basically call it abuse of data. So the more and more abuse of data we can reduce, the insurer will have the trust and will be able to basically process the claims faster and reduce the cost of premium as well. So I think these are the kind of like I have to put up around.
Right. Yeah, I mean, just to add to that again, when it comes to how do you personalize health insurance aspect over there, there are platforms such as Google Fit, which are already integrated into our systems, where now we have access to certain healthcare data that our customers have. Now it's just a question of giving that access to insurance companies so that they can come up with the appropriate premiums based on what their healthcare lifestyles are. So, for example, if let's say if the insurance company feels that this person is active in a way that they will give them certain percentage discount in terms of health insurance premium because they know that their risks are getting limited in the sense that they have an active healthy lifestyle. I also talked about at that some level DNA testing where it's possible to predict how the system how a person's lifestyle or irrespective of the lifestyle how they will turn out, whether there are risks, inherent genetic risks that they will be able to fall ill in the future. I mean, it's what is used over there is AI and ML, right, to understand what the potential risks are. So these technologies will be able to leverage this and insurance companies will be able to leverage these kind of technologies to underwrite better products and hopefully bring down the cost of health insurance for everyone. Sunil, maybe you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. So no, what I was saying is now so far we have been discussing, the positives that have happened, the progress that has happened, and but then what about the dangers? Like data privacy, hacking, security. What are the problems and what are the remedies to counter this? Because I've been listening to you talk of customized healthcare, digital IDs, genetic DNA sequencing right from from somebody is a baby. It all sounds great, but I mean there are hacking, privacy, security issues. So maybe if you can speak a bit on that.
So just to give a quick sense of it, like which I talked about few points, like as we moving into the new world, like we call it like a new technologies, like we call blockchain, where the kind of like a data authentication can be done very significantly, and Web3, which is coming in a very scalable way right now, where the multi exchange can happen of the data without even tempering the data as well. So definitely the use of this technology is very critical. But on the other side, the pitfalls. See, normally we can't see just AI that AI can solve everything. I'm sorry, but AI cannot solve everything also. AI is a kind of like a tool which can assist you to faster the process. The process may be faster for the decision making. Process may be faster in terms of the kind of areas of analysis better. But AI, you cannot depend on AI completely. That okay, you leave everything on AI. AI is doing everything for you. It's not going to happen for you. Definitely pitfalls on that. And the major pitfalls comes from the AI side is data, as you rightly said, because the abundance of data is very critical to reach you certain kind of a decision and to basically trust on that. And now it comes about trust because even the AI is working, technology is working, it is still going to take at least kind of like a few years to reach a level where the trust is going to happen. So there's a lot of pitfalls is there. The technology is being developed, solution is also coming out, but there is a pitfall. We can't just blindly follow AI around that.
Right. So when it comes to data security, I think what the best thing about the Indian ecosystem with the introduction of the health ID is that government is in control of data as a whole, and because this one entity is controlling all data, there is some level of confidence and trust that there will be good amount of standards and practices which will be in place now that a one single entity is handling all these sensitive data of healthcare. So we have that comfort in the Indian ecosystem as well, where of course people who will be leveraging this data will have to have certain levels of standards when it comes to handling it. But again, there are safeguards in place, just like how it was for Aadhaar. That despite there being some teething problems, I think it's a very secure ecosystem to authenticate, to validate different kinds of schemes or for example for whatever needs proper planning. The second is, there are additional technologies that can be definitely leveraged, like for example, blockchain. Uh, to give you an example, let's say if insurance companies want to authenticate a claim, it can be on an immutable ledger, which is basically no one will be able to tamper any records, be it any intermediary, be it anyone. So there can be some level of assurance that there is good amount of security being there in place, uh, because the kind of technologies that have, especially blockchain, and especially because of that one single entity of government handling all sensitive data. Rest assured, I think there is a good amount of comfort that the Indian healthcare system and ecosystem will have good amount of data privacy and security going forward.
So, Sanil, I just maybe can you expand on that government? You're right, we do have a level of comfort, but has the government been coming out with safeguards and countermeasures? I mean, we don't know much like Aadhaar and all, but the government in the healthcare systems, we are like the common people are, don't know much about the safeguards and security. So, if you could just expand on the government
Yeah, I
on
mean,
that.
for handling a billion data of a billion people, it there has to be certain level of checks which go into place while coming up with the entire infrastructure. And while people may not be aware of how the system works, there are a lot of consultations which happen. Top consulting companies, IT consulting, business consulting companies will come up with a framework on how these systems are supposed to be built, and these are written by the most, like, you can say, experts in their own domain. So I think maybe it's a misconception that because it's a government that they won't come up with a logical infrastructure, but the government has proven time and again with the introduction of the healthcare stack, with the introduction of Aadhaar, that there is some level of credibility which is involved. yes, of course, there are certain pre-teething problems when the initial implementation takes place. But over a period, we have seen it time and again that India is like really ahead in terms of how these technologies can be implemented across mass and to billion plus people, and that's like commendable in a way.
Okay. And I just like one more follow-up question to Layak, because you have talked a lot of blockchain. Even Sanil talked of blockchain. So maybe if you can just tell us about what is the use of blockchain in the Indian healthcare industry, and what are any future? Because blockchain is one of the least understood technologiges. So
So
if it's
basically,
possible, could you?
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll try my best on that.
Sure.
Uh,
Sure.
uh, So basically, the blockchain usage is very critical because in healthcare we are a multi-party exchange that we do. It is a patient, it is a provider, it is a payer as well, and in between there are multiple partners as well. Now, what happens? The data flows from multiple partners here and there. So what blockchain does, basically blockchain allows the data into a kind of like a blocks to in an immutable nature which can't be changed because it generates a kind of like a token, and that it doesn't go kind of like we can't see the data actually. It just creates the kind of like a tokenization of the data, and the provider also see the tokenization at their end, and okay, this tokenization is basically authenticating the token to token around that. So the data does not travel in the way the current format it is. The data travels in the kind of like a ledger or the block formatted from one location to another location, and other parties are authenticating the data by the use of different tokens in that journey, and they not and hence the chance of tampering get reduces, and hence the data control becomes very very secure and authenticated, and it becomes a kind of like a complete security, or you can say kind of like a trust around that. So this is how the kind of like areas of the blockchain is a very heavily used case in healthcare, because we have very very critical health data, we have a surgery data, medical data, family data, our very very personal data that we have, and it becomes very critical importance of using such technologies to make these kind of ecosystems to be kind of like a secure, scalable, and trusted.
Okay. And also, like one, I'd like maybe more follow up on IoT. So again, not many people know about the IoT. How is the IoT ecosystem in India? I mean, are most people using IoTs, or is it very underutilized? Maybe you can
Uh,
talk of us compared to the world.
It is underutilized. It is not to the full scale. For yes, they are using IoTs and devices like in a surgery operations right now, in tracking the kind of like how the operation is happening, monitoring of the operations, testing in the pathology labs. We're using IoT devices to basically testing the kind of like blood, urine, anything around that, and so that the instant report can be generated and patient can see the report within a matter of 2 3 minutes once the blood is given to them. But the kind of like scenarios, I wouldn't say this in large scale. It is coming out. It needs a kind of like a more precise training, data learning, and a lot of kind of experience, and the kind of like I would say like a very trust on that AI to process, because because in health you can't just pull the AI. You can't just put a kind of robot to do operations in India. You can't do that. You need the kind of supervised learning and a lot of kind of like training, testing, authentication, governance, approval to reach that level. So I would say, it is in the process, and but it will take some time for sure.
Sanil, you want to add to that about IoTs or?
No, I think yeah, as like rightly mentioned, I don't see a lot of people using, at least in when it comes to the insurance side, using IoT products to track their fitness and healthcare. Maybe it's something of a behavioral change that needs to be adopted. And again, it's difficult for IoT variables to penetrate across the Indian population because, of course, cost also becomes a factor over there. So it'll take some time. I don't think that it's something that can happen overnight, but it needs a behavioral change rather than anything that is uh, be promoting it to be get adopted.
Yeah. So again, I was thinking like maybe before we go to the final stage of the discussion, like we talk of whatever personalization, hyper personalization technology, but what are the shortfalls in the healthcare insurance system as of now, in the health insurance system, from the point of view of government, from the point of view of industry? Is there any basics which haven't been sorted out, or are all the basics good? are there still any shortfalls and lacunae, which, I mean, once you become high tech, then they might, become, even the holes could become bigger. So if you can think of any of that.
I mean, the biggest challenge in insurance is basically trying to figure it out. What is it that I'm covered under? Health insurance, such a complicated subject, and I feel that the industry itself is trying to complicate it further, where it's moving away and bringing in these additional conditions and clauses and whatnot. And of course, they may come from their own place, but for an end consumer, it becomes very, very challenging to make sense of all of these things. Even today, people, while they might be buying health insurance, they're not really aware of what are the terms and conditions are. So again, creating that awareness becomes a problem, and it's always going to be a problem unless insurance companies come up with a standard way of trying to communicate. Okay, this is what you're covered under, this is what you're not covered under, and that's it. But it's become very complicated. In terms of other problems, I feel that while on the retail side, on an individual customer side, the ecosystem has pretty much evolved in terms of technology. There is still a lot of potential to grow on the group side, where let's say this coverage of an employer-employee, or larger groups, where it's difficult. It's not evolved as in terms of tech as this, like we would have liked in terms of integrations, in terms of trying to make it seamless for the end customer to avail their insurance benefits, and a seamless claims experience. Yeah.
So yeah, I think just to quickly add, like you rightly said, Sanil, that there is a challenges in the ecosystem as a health insurance because in terms of the kind of like the major points is that I don't even know am I a patient or buying a policy that what is covered for me because I'm seeing a lot of messages on the LinkedIn as well that most of the people are complaining that they bought the policy but the claims is not accepted by the insurer because sometimes the clauses are basically creating a lot of problems and understanding of the policies is definitely a big pain because documents are very large and there has been a kind of like a certain creation, the standardization of the health products, but still those are not fulfilling the right kind of like customer expectations around that. There is a need of the kind of like a policies which demands the need of the customers, the need-based policies, insurance is needed around that. Obviously, in terms of the kind of like kind of regulations point of view, are challenges because you can't just create any product randomly and go to the market. So GTM becomes basically definitely a challenge on going to the market. It takes a lot of time in that GTM, and a lot of kind of like areas. I think IRDA launched the sandboxes, but I don't see a successful use case of sandboxes in the current scenario that has been actually adopted. Either it is a kind of like areas of family floater, gift of the insurance, or use of the devices not being have been captured in the mainstream, and also the kind of like licensing scenario. Somebody want to launch an insurance very easily. It takes 6 to 8 months, 12 months, or 1 year kind of like to take the license as well. So not many players are there also in the market. Considering the kind of size of the population that we have, we don't have enough players in the market. We have 73 companies that we have who's managing the 1 billion plus population. While in US you talk about there are more than 5,000 insurance companies managing only 350 million people. So there is a gap. There is a kind of regulation challenges, financial issues, and awareness is a very big issue. Awareness because if you go to the tier after tier 3, tier 5, any cities around basically if you go to the after tier 3, tier 4 cities, the awareness is huge because people know what LIC. People know, okay, I can get a life insurance as saving plans, but can I take a health insurance policy as well? They don't even know that actually. And even the employees working in India, the country, the rural villages, they don't even know. Can I basically claim my group policies given by the government to me as well? I have seen that scenarios. People are working for 30 years, 40 years service, they don't even know they can use it. So the major issue is awareness. The major issue is about the kind of like areas, understanding of the health. They don't take it health seriously. They say, okay, I will go to the doctor 5 kilometers away in my place and I will get it done. And they don't even know that can I pay my health bills from the policy itself. Is a bigger pain point than selling the policies in India that is a major challenge right now.
Anyway, thanks for that. I asked because, I mean, it's inevitable the future will be ruled by algorithms, and algorithms are going to simplify things. But if it's a mess in the first place, the algorithms could create a bigger mess. So that's why I just thought that aloud. So anyway, I think it's quite interesting. I think we have covered almost all the facets of what a personalized and hyper personalized health insurance could be. So I'd like just to end with asking you: is hyper personalized health insurance an inevitability? Will it apply to everyone in the future? And once we reach that stage, what will it look like? Like, I'm curious. Let's say if, as we discussed, we sort out all the problem, what is it going to like? Like, everyone has an individual Facebook page. Will everyone have an individual health insurance page, which is looks totally different from everyone? So I'm just
And
curious how
absolutely,
it's all going to end.
it will be basically personal, their health UPI we call it. They will be able to know what happened, where I went, where I gone, which medicine I took, which hospital I took, what when was the test was done, and what is it? Because the way that we are able to able to see, if you go to the like a phone pay, you'll able to see, okay, whom I transfer, when I transfer, which ID, which you can actually see with the government driven kind of like ABHA will be able to provide like, okay, all the kind of like authentications, all the process, everything around that. And second point, like the way we are able to see in Aadhaar is she Aadhaar, like we are able to see where you authorize your Aadhaar, for what purpose you putting in Aadhaar. Similar way, ABHA will be able to provide your health ID, and against that health ID, you can basically scan everything lifestyle of the health about individual. You can see that.
Right. At least one thing that will happen is you'll be able to buy a health insurance at a click. There's no more
Okay.
challenges of, asking, getting a call and evaluating, getting your health test done or whatever. But there are certain challenges as well, right? When you talk about will this be inevitable? Yes, it will be. It's a very short amount of time. In the next 5 years itself, you can see a lot of mass adoption in hyper personalization. There are certain downsides to it as well. Now this becomes a market for lemons, right? Because the people who are like, let's say, well off in terms of physical health, they'll get lower premiums. But the health premiums of those who are suffering, or some who have hereditary disease or whatever, this their premiums will skyrocket, because apparently now there's a balance of premiums, because there is an information asymmetry. But when all of this comes in, because people will see that, let's say someone who's a heart patient, their premiums will skyrocket, and then it becomes a challenge for social inequity, and the government will have to figure out, how to manage this. And insurance companies won't hesitate, because at the end of the day they are running a business.
Yeah.
It's the job of the government to, take measures to, avoid this kind of situation.
Okay, so I just, since we have time, let's end on just, I want both of you, one game changer in the Indian health insurance industry that is going to come in the future, whether it's a technology or a scheme. One health, you know, game changer which you think is going to come, and why. That's it. Let's end it with that.
For me, I think health UPI is going to be the game changer for India. There is no bad, because either you buy a policy, you file for a claims, you check your health, you get the benefits of health from the government, or you subsidize the health for the people, depending on the kind of like the cost issues. And as Sanil said, that there will be cost changes for the people's health. But if the government want to give subsidize to people, okay, you want to get the picture in the system, I think UPI health is definitely going to be the game changer without doubt at all for me.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I also agree with Layak that this is like the game changer for the Indian healthcare system, and things look very promising for the next 2 3 years. And you'll see a lot of investments flowing in this sector, and a lot of innovations happening. And hopefully, we'll become the pride of the world when it comes to Indian healthcare.
Okay, so on that positive note, I think that's a good place to end. The game changer is going to be health UPI kind of system.
Yeah,
And Anya,
thank
I'd
you.
like to thank you, because I think we have, it was a very comprehensive discussion. We covered all the technologies, all the schemes, all the, positives and pitfalls. So I really enjoyed talking with you. It was a great discussion.
Thank
I'd
you,
like to thank
Sunil.
you
Thank you
both
so
of
much.
you.
Thank
Thank
you
you
very
so
much.
much.
Likewise, thank you so
Bye.
much. Bye.